Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blogging Theology Academy. And good evening. Assalamu alaikum. And I'm delighted you could join us for this special live Q&A as we introduce Blogging Theology Academy's groundbreaking new diploma in Islamic Psychology. And we're honored to be joined by Dr. Francesca Bocca, a renowned neuroscientist and theologian, who will be shedding light on this exciting new program and answering your questions, inshallah. So we will take your questions when you just perhaps put them on the comments there, and we'll read them out, inshallah. So welcome, everyone. And we'll just begin, I think, just have a chat and ask Dr. Francesca a very basic question, really. What exactly is Islamic psychology, and how does it differ from Western psychology?
Thank you so much, Paul. Assalamu alaikum to you and assalamu alaikum to everyone who is watching live and then who's watching later. I'm really happy to be able to answer these questions because I think that Islamic psychology is one of those often ignored subjects or not very well known about in the Ummah, but whose knowledge really can change the way we behave, we understand each other. Islamic psychology translates from the Arabic ilm al-nafs, and that is the knowledge of the self. The nafs is our ego, can be called, or our psyche, our mind. We will go through these different translations and what are more appropriate and less appropriate through the course. And the knowledge of it includes both mental health and spiritual health from an Islamic and indigenous approach. This is not a new science. This is something that you can find books that come from 1,000 years ago, even more than that in the Islamic tradition. And so we shouldn't let our own sciences be forgotten, and therefore we should give some effort to study it and renew it and revive it and get to know this about our tradition, inshallah.
Mm-hmm. Our first question, I'll just put up on the screen here. Is the Islamic psychology academically recognized? That's a good question. And if yes, what are the most important works, study papers on it in the academy? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Islamic psychology nowadays is seen as one of many schools of psychology. And nowadays, one can really find hundreds of names, of views within the whole field of academic fields in psychology. If you look at Islamic psychology in any academic search engine like Google Scholar or PubMed, you will find many results. Some of these results are from actual indigenous Islamic psychology, and some are just studies of psychology done on Muslims. So sometimes there is a bit of confusion between these two. As for most important works, studies, and papers, of course, we can go through them in the course, but just as a guideline, as a pointer, I think that looking for ilm al-nafs as a keyword is going to help you a lot to narrow down papers that are not only on psychology and Muslims. And for books and manuals and reference works, there is now a series of books published by Routledge, which is one of the main academic publishers for books, very famous, very widely recognized on Islamic psychology. And if I'm not mistaken, it's about 10 or 11 books already, ranging from topics from classical Islamic history. The latest one is on the Maristans, which were the mental health hospitals in the Islamic Middle Ages. Early books are about theory, and other books on spiritual therapy, tazkiyah therapy, and many other aspects that we will go through in the course, inshallah. So this is just a pointer to start your own research. But this is the main topic, of course, of the course that we will go through in more detail.
We'll look at your syllabus in a minute. I'll put it up on the screen. We're just going to take a few more questions before we look in detail at the actual course itself, its structure, the syllabus, the topics covered. We'll go through that in a little bit of detail. But before we do that, I just want to put up another question from Ali. Salam, Paul. Big fan, alhamdulillah. Could Islamic psychology be of interest to non-Muslims, or do only Muslims stand to benefit from it? If it's beneficial for non-Muslims too, how so? This is a really good question.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is a more advanced question, but I can already tell you that Islamic psychology is good for everyone. And the reason is that it's ilm al-nafs, knowledge of the self. All humans have a self. So it is going to help people understand themselves better and heal themselves better, no matter the religion. But of course, you cannot really apply a paradigm if you do not believe in it fully. It's as if saying, I want to go to a psychoanalyst, but I believe that Freud was fundamentally wrong. Is that going to help me? Maybe somehow I'm going to get some knowledge, but overall, really to heal, to cure, to subscribe to any approach of psychology, you really need to believe it for it to work. Otherwise, you're going to stay with your defenses and so on. So in theory, you can approach non-Muslim clients with Islamic psychology. I do that as well, and we can discuss more if there are questions on how to do so. But Islamic psychology, although it's a universal science, it can be applied when one subscribes to the basic theoretical points of the framework, let's say.
Okay, interesting. Let's look very briefly. We'll look at it several times, but at the moment, just look briefly at the website on Blogging Theology Academy. So bloggingtheologyacademy.com is the address. Just you can go there now. And I just want to share this screen with you, introducing BT Academy's cutting-edge diploma in Islamic psychology with renowned neuroscientist and theologian Dr. Francesca, who's our guest today. And as it says here, BT Academy Diploma in Islamic Psychology. Join your guide, Dr. Francesca, with years of research excellence and practical expertise for this uniquely engaging and rigorous training course in Islamic psychology. You already mentioned Ilm al-Nafs there, this understanding of Islamic psychology. The course will move from a theoretical understanding of the components of the self and their intricacies to a historical overview of the main authors and currents, which comprise the 1,200-year history of the science. This is way before Western science, of course, was on the scene with Western psychology, and go on to navigate therapeutical aspects of Islamic psychology pertaining to today's most common and relevant mental health issues, alongside spiritual maladies. And this is immensely important. I won't read all the rest of it. You can see for yourself. And do go to the website, bloggingtheologyacademy.com, and click on the short courses, the Diploma in Islamic Psychology. There we have more details, the instructor, the duration, the delivery, the fees, the start date, June the 22nd, which is just next month, 4 weeks away. And there's a button there, apply now. There's the application form, and there's even, you can ask questions about the diploma later on if you don't want to do it now. Put your name, address, and your question. Do you want to say anything more about that, Dr. Francesca?
Yes, I want to also take the occasion to answer one question which was put before, because I think it gives really the possibility to say something very interesting about Islamic psychology. It was someone who said that mind isn't the ego. Yeah, that's correct. But what is really fascinating about ilm al-nafs is that the nafs can be different things depending on the stage we are at and depending on the work that we have put on ourselves. What does it mean? And this you can find also in Islamic theology. So if you have a base on classical works such as Al-Ghazali or such as these really classical works, you will see that sometimes they talk about nafs as a technical term as something despicable, something negative, something that we have to overcome. Some other times is instead you have like educated this part of yourself, which can be also the volitive, let's say the will faculties of yourself, and it becomes your ally, your best friend. And so it assists you in your growth. And people have different types of nafs. There are different stages of nafs. And however, in Western psychology, generally, we divide sharply these functions. And for example, as psychoanalysis does, I do not subscribe to that, but there is really clear. They say the ego is the negative side, and then you have and all these divisions. In Islamic psychology, we have a different framework. So sometimes it is difficult to translate that directly in English, and sometimes we have to use different words to translate one concept because it depends on the stage. So this, I think, is really fascinating also for people that are into Islamic theology or are into how to map from the Arabic language to the English language these classical concepts of our tradition. I think it is very valuable for those as well.
Oh, that's a good answer. Yeah. There's one here I wanted to put up here just to talk about this. Brother Paul, these diplomas are really expensive. The 4 exclamation marks, I think. They are. I mean, there's several things I could say about that. One is the fees for this course are actually the normal fees that one would pay at an academic institution in the West. So they're not in any way exaggerated, or they're quite normal, quite average. They're not particularly high at all. Now, I appreciate people in different parts of the world have different, have different, even in Britain or France or anywhere, not everyone can afford the fees. And so we do have a limited number of scholarships. that are available, and even arrangements we can come to individually with students if they are unable to pay the full fees or only be able to pay a proportion of the fees. So we recognize that for some people they're not going to be affordable, but we are when you talk about that on a one-to-one basis, with the individual students concerned. So don't let the cost put you off. If you're very interested and you really want to be committed to this course, and we'll look at it in more detail in a sec, do apply, and we will talk to you. We'll perhaps interview you and have a conversation. So I wouldn't want that to be a complete, absolute, block to anyone applying simply because the costs were too high for them. So I hope that addresses the point a little bit. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Dr. Francesca?
Yeah, of course we're super open to scholarships. That's so important to help people that are, especially from parts of the world where Islamic psychology isn't really a thing. I think that's really of the utmost importance, because in some parts of the English-speaking world, we start having several practitioners, several schools and specialization places, but there are countries, and that's also for myself in Italy, there aren't many people knowing what Islamic psychology is or applying it. So we will definitely give priority to people from these areas and help them with their finances if they cannot afford it. So do not worry about that.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that.
I mean, for the nice words of people. Thank you.
Another really good question. Just to let you know, I'm only a business management student, so I'm not sure if it's for me. How would you respond to that, Doctor?
Okay, I would suggest to go through the syllabus. So we will perhaps suggest people that are not psychology majors to check out the course, because this is not a technical course for psychotherapists who are already specialized in the Western School of Psychology. This is another discipline, after all. Of course, we're going to use psychological language, but that's just a shortcut. Eventually, this is another science. So don't make it fool you that as if we're talking about the BT diplomas in, for example, theology. It's Islamic theology. It's not you have to be a graduate of theology from a Christian seminar or whatever. It's the same difference there is right there. So perhaps if you're a business management student and you're interested in the topics that are outlined in the syllabus, you do not need a lot of prior knowledge to that. And on top of that, we also do offer in the course, but I'm sure Paul will mention it, the office hours. So for people that need a more tailored learning experience, they can meet directly with me and write me, and we have a WhatsApp group to discuss together how to really get the hang of this discipline, even if it's not your specialization, or if you want to apply it in a rather different environment or way than it is outlined mainstream in the course.
Okay, thank you for that. Here's a good question. How should we speak with Muslims who are under the impression that Western psychology is all we need, / those who see Islamic psychology as pseudoscience?
Yes, I love this. Thanks for asking. So I have studied in my life Western psychology, the most scientific branch of it, which is cognitive behavioral, and then I did my PhD in neuroscience, and you can't get more science than that in psychology. And I can guarantee you that psychotherapy is not a science by the meaning of a hard science. There's a lot of things that's not scientific in that. In fact, any theory of psychology is not based on science, is a philosophical theory, is another sort of theory, which then has some sort of empirical backing. This is not a science epistemologically. So if we want to give a weak argumentation, we could say, well, Islamic psychology is like that too, because we have a theory, we make this theory, and then we have some empirical backing, and we will go through what is the empirical backing on it too. So in the worst case scenario, with the weakest argumentation that we can have for people that really do not believe in any of our premises, it is the same. It is the same. But if we want instead to be a bit more daring, we can also bring a lot of other proofs and a lot of other backings that are based on the weaknesses of the Western psychological method. And this will include a criticism, for example, of psychiatry, which is the science which is always used in hand-to-hand with psychology, in psychotherapy. This is a very weak science and a very harmful one. And some of the debate concerning this we will go through in the course. The use of medication is not backed on science. And this is also a part of it. And concerning Islamic psychology, we will also talk about what is the experimental and validational method of it, and why is it actually more of a science, because it doesn't only work on disorders, but on the normal psyche as well. So it has the wider scientific backing that one can have. But this we have to go more in detail through in the course, but it is a very fascinating point, really.
Okay, thank you for that. This is a good one. People are afraid of psychology, the brainwashing. I mean, is this a thing? I wasn't aware that people had this fear, but I guess some people do.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, many people do. Here in Italy, for the Muslim community, we are very afraid of psychology, and this comes to some expense, which is the mental health of the more vulnerable population, because there are some people who do need psychology because their nafs is sick, their nafs is blocked, or whatever. The problem with psychology, as it is understood nowadays, and especially as the younger generations understand it, is that it is their own language, the way to understand reality. So, for example, everything is quote unquote a trauma. Everything is quote unquote a boundary you have to set. And of course, if the framework that you are given to heal is different from the framework that you believe in, this is going to be a disaster, because it's going to create cognitive dissonance inside yourself. And so maybe a brainwashing so and so, but maybe also you disconnect. You become one person when you believe and pray and go to the mosque, and another person when you're in therapy. So we want to avoid this, of course, at all costs. And that is why I call an indigenous approach. And this is not a great word because it makes you think of indigenous population, I don't know where in the world, but indigenous, it actually means it is grassroots. Islamic psychology was born from the same foundations we believe in. So it is not brainwashing, it is actually supporting the same belief. So I think this is a very valid point, and we should think about it when we approach therapy, when we approach our mental health. It's not separate from our spiritual health as well.
Okay. This is a good question. I quite like this one. Does much of modern day Western psychology presuppose philosophical materialism?
Not as much as one would think. So I would say you're surprised. Yeah, because in the last 10 years, we have really assisted in the field, in the technical field of psychology. So this has not really arrived yet, I think, to the mainstream. But until 10 years ago, everybody believed that neuroscience was going to solve any problem related to the mind, and it was going to explain consciousness. And then it got stuck. And then it created this thing which is called the hard problem of neurosciences. If you're interested in philosophy of science, you can find a lot about it online. And it got methodologically stuck. And so many schools of psychology and psychotherapy said, well, we can't really find the data, and we can't really use neuroscience and materialism to back our therapies, so we're going to think about something else. So, for example, the most recent school of psychology, and we have talked about it in a recent podcast, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. It is actually Buddhism put together with cognitive behavioral therapy. So there is a resurgence of spirituality in the psychological world. Nowadays, much less than 5, 10, 15 years ago, if you go to a psychotherapist and you tell them, I believe in something, they're going to tell you good for you because that's going to help you. How? Nobody knows. But this is getting more and more recognized. Of course, in some countries more than other. So this is more in the Anglosphere, let's say, rather than perhaps continental Europe, where there is still very reductionist and materialist. But this change is really going on. It's so fascinating.
I had no idea. It's very enlightening, I must say. It's kind of good news. Change of subject. Amir has a peace be upon you. I was wondering if there would be another opportunity to take the course, as I unfortunately don't have the funds at the moment.
Inshallah, I hope so. Long planning is impossible, really, to be honest, in life. But I would like so. I love to teach. I would love to bring this subject to as many people as possible. And again, as Paul said, if you do have the passion for it and you have a strong motivation, but you don't have the funds, please do apply anyway, and we will try our best to cover you with scholarship. So,
absolutely, thank you for that. Shall we have a look a bit more at the website again?
Yes, gladly, and also maybe at the program. So
yes, yeah, I think I might have to. Okay, let me just find it. Just scrolling down. Yep, just trying to find it actually. Hang on a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Short courses, here we go. Clicking on the link.
I've also sent you the link in case it can be helpful.
Oh, there we go, right at the bottom there. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, beautiful syllabus. Yeah, it was down under the poster.
That's it. Yeah, let me just click on that.
Yeah, so I suggest for anyone who is interested in applying, they do have a look at the syllabus, because that really makes you understand what are we going to talk about and what is the level, the approach, the style. But we are going to explain it now as well, inshallah.
Yeah. I'll just get up on the screen. Syllabus. There we go. Okay. So so this is the syllabus, obviously, for BT Academy's Islamic Psychology Diploma. How do you want to go through it? Do you want to go through it week by week, or what would you like to do?
Yes, I will explain the main modules, and maybe in the meanwhile you can scroll down. But okay, so the course is going to be divided into learning modules. The first module is going to be about an Islamic outlook on Western psychology. So this is going to answer many of the questions that were in the chat as well, and it's going to mean many things. What is the Islamic approach, look, and critique of several Western psychological schools? But not only that, what do we mean by psychology? And what has been the historical relationship between the Western psychology and the Muslim lands? Because this is a very interesting story. And there is a reason why, if you go to any Muslim land or the Middle East, you will not find the average psychologist to practice Islamic psychology. It has been wiped out from mainstream clinics, from mainstream practices, except very few places. So why is that? It's very fascinating. And then we're going to dedicate a module to the theoretical model of Islamic psychology. So what do we mean about the self? What does it mean behavior? There was also someone asking a question before on what is personality psychology, for example. That is a very important theoretical question too. So we all have a nafs, but why are some of us different than others? In which aspects are we different than others? And nowadays, we use many of these MBTIs, personality quizzes, personality tests, but we do have our own in our own tradition. We do have our own way of dividing people into categories, into types. So we will discuss this, and we will discuss the most important part, which is how can this be applied to understand if we're getting better or getting worse. Because in Islamic psychology, we do not have only people sick and people who are okay. We do have a more nuanced view of what is mental and spiritual health, and we are supposed to check it every day, believe it or not. There is a practice of Islamic psychology, which is called the muhasaba, which is supposed, and since 1,000 years ago or more, people used to do it every day to check on themselves, on their growth, and we will see how is that. And then we will move on one very fascinating area, which is the history of Islamic psychology. Right. And this will be very compact, as much as I could, into a course. But it's really a fascinating and rich history. It starts, of course, it has Quranic basis, this discipline. So there is not a different birth than Islam. But we will go through the centuries and see how this discipline flourished, how it interacted with other subjects. Because Islamic psychology interacts with fiqh, it interacts with aqidah, it interacts with all the sciences we know, until we arrive to nowadays. And in the contemporary history, I think you are going to enjoy it, because we are going to look at most lands where it is applied around the world. So this is not going to be the usual look where you just look at English-speaking countries or just in North Africa, just the Middle East. No. We're going to have a more globalized look and really see where are new ideas and new schools and new developments in this discipline. And then moving on, the second part of the course is going to be applications of Islamic psychology. And this will be really a lot of stuff, because it can be applications to spirituality, application to sicknesses, application to community, application to women, mothers. And in this part of the course, we're also going to include case studies. And we will discuss case studies together, me and students, which will be things that the students find interesting. We will build together a case study to present to the classroom and then discuss it plenarily. So the second semester is also going to be applied and is going to be a lot more interactive, inshallah. And I think that whatever is the application you have in mind for Islamic psychology, whether it is in your family, whether it is in your mosque, in your community, I try to encourage people a lot to apply this science, and we will find concrete cases of applications. And there are studies nowadays of it being applied to mothers giving birth, to prisons environments, to youth at risk, to really whatever. This is a discipline that can be applied for the good of the community. So inshallah, that is the main result, I think, of the syllabus at the end of the year, inshallah.
Okay, well, that's a very interesting summary of the syllabus. Please do have a look yourself at bloggingtheologyacademy.com, and you can read all the extraordinary academic detail as well. On the right here, there's a right hand column which looks at the suggested readings, academic research, the science, the Islamic content is very good. So definitely worth checking that out. As we go back to some of the questions, I see one from Steve C that took my interest. Mind, he says, is an emergent property of the brain. I remember when I was doing philosophy at university, I was told this in philosophy of mind, that the mind is an emergent property. You can't see consciousness, just as you can't see computer programs like Microsoft Word by looking at circuits. How would you as a Muslim scholar, as a scientist, respond to that statement?
Yeah, so I understand what you were taught, because that's what I was also taught about 15 years ago. And that's just one theory. And there's this guy called John Eccles that said the mind is an emergent property of the brain. So all there is that you need the brain for a mind to come up. But then in this extreme reductionist approach, you're actually saying that there is a soul because it needs a brain, but it is something else. So I think that this theory, if taken to the extreme, is actually saying what we're saying, just changing words. So as you can see computer programs like Microsoft Word by looking at circuits, yeah, of course, that's what we say as well in Islamic psychology. So we will talk about the location of the nafs, the ruh, the qalb, the aql, the components that make a person. And our view is going to be very similar to that, but is not going to start from reductionism. And
Right.
we'll discuss how that explains the data in more detail. But to be short, the point of saying it is an emergent property and it is just in the human beings that it is really this designed code, it really calls for an explanation that there is actually a designer that implemented that. So I think that by taking this route, and it's a route I don't like because I find it very tortuous, but you actually arrive to the same things we're saying. So we could.
Okay.
Amin.
Yes. So someone's responded, only God can guide us, the path we showed you, even if you are thankful or regretful.
Indeed.
Okay, well, let me just, there were some more questions. Let me just scroll down. Were there any took your interest, Dr. Francesca?
Yeah, let me have a look. All right. Oh, what is the Islamic interpretation and explanation of schizophrenia? That is very, very interesting.
Yes.
So, yes, I love these questions, and I love the interplay between psychology and medicine, because classically in the Islamic golden age, so-called, I hate this term, but let me just use shortcuts for today. We'll use better ones inshallah in the course. The two subjects were together, they were aligned. And the third subject that was brought together with these two is fiqh. And all three subjects are needed to treat schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is one of the most severe mental health disorders, and actually it would be better to categorize it as a neurological disorder that has mental health effects as well, because this is mainly a medical problem, meaning that I'm not going to go into the detail, but there are brain differences in the quality of how your brain is wired, and there are genetic variations that are linked to schizophrenia that provoke very specific patterns. So these patterns are, first, you lose part of your mental abilities in quite a young age. So earlier, it was called early dementia, as a word similar to early dementia comes, and then you have these symptoms that you actually look quote-unquote crazy. So this is a very popular mental health disorder because people become paranoid, they have hallucination. It's one of the things that make people a little bit afraid. But this type of disorder is not caused by the nerves. It is called by the jism in our tradition. So this is a bodily disorder that also affects you heavily on several aspects which are psychological. For example, your taklif, and this is where fiqh comes in. So you're not held accountable for several of your choices. And a mufti, so an expert in Islamic law, needs to tell case by case which choices and how much, because everything is in degrees. Everything is in degrees in Islamic psychology. And at the same time, you do need to apply psychology for patients with schizophrenia to improve their life quality. Because Islamic psychology is not just to heal people. There are things that you cannot be healed from. We do not know how to heal you from, rather, because there is a medication for every sickness, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, except death. But we do not know some of these cures. So as we do not have the cure, we need to help these people as well. So this is why in the Bimaristans, the mental health hospitals, which already in the year 1000, there were in Damascus, these hospitals, and in several other places, they used to use water therapies, for example, hot and cold, diet, sound, exposition to the sun, several things that could make the life quality of these people better. And this is so important. Also, how to treat them, how to talk to them, to have anyway talk therapy, which you know is not going to heal them, because this is a severe disorder of the body, but which is going to make them feel as good as possible and make their life as dignified as possible. And this is something that really, sometimes in the Muslim lands, we have forgotten, and we need to bring back the treatment of severe disorders of mental health.
Thank you. There's another one here as well by Amir. I would like to ask you, please, do you see ACT values clarification as a way to connect with the fitra for those who are secular?
Yeah, I love acceptance and commitment therapy. This is, I think it is something that really improved the panorama, the landscape of psychotherapy a lot since it appeared. That basically, just as a summary, in this approach, you let people phrase and explicitly say what are their values, what are the things they subscribe to, and then they also need in parallel to accept reality, basically. And so you go to a route which is not, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to progress, I'm going to heal, but reality is there. Deal with this reality, accept with this reality in a way which is congruent with your belief. And this is enough. I'm just summarizing and simplifying. I love this approach. However, there is no need to pass through it to go to the Islamic path. Because we can call it acceptance, we can call it rida, doesn't change So usually when I have clients that are non-Muslims and that need an acceptance approach, for example, they've lost someone, or they're going through severe health problems, and you just need acceptance route. I don't go through other schools. I just apply Islamic psychology. Just I explain what it is. So, for example, for us, a very important value is acceptance, which is called rida, and you need to be content with what comes to you. And of course, for us as Muslims, it comes from Allah. But for you, it just had to take the value of acceptance. And that usually works out without going through intermediary paradigms, let's say.
Okay. There are lots of new questions, actually. Do any of those take your interest you might want to address?
Let's go and see. Why doesn't Islamic psychology talk of trauma by narcissism and abuse? If it does, where and what does it say? Yeah, it does talk about it a lot. We do have our own terminology, of course, but in general, when we talk about the levels of the nafs, we do talk about how human beings can be, and this has a moral value. So it can be good or bad, and it's not just random states, not personality. Levels of the nafs means how well you're progressing. And the lower level is narcissism, generally. It can be translated as such. So nafs al-ammara bisu. It is the self which orders evil. And the worst example of it, of course, is Iblis, right? So he's denying his arrogance, his inflated image of the self. Of course, I'm translating it to psychological jargon because this is Islamic theology. It's like twin sister of Islamic theology, but not exactly the same. So we use our own terminology. And by the example of, unfortunately, Iblis itself, the mental health disorder related to that is narcissism. Unfortunately, because it causes a lot of sufferings for people who have it and for people who have family members that have it. And of course, everything is to a degree. There are people that have narcissistic traits, or that sometimes they can behave like a narcissistic person. This does not mean, narcissistic people are in the fire or anything. This is just understanding their mentality, their personality, what are the mechanisms that work for them. So we do talk a lot about this. We do talk a lot about things like abuse, dhulm, and injustice. And the injustice made towards mental health is abuse. So we can translate any of these things because things that are reality, of course, will have an explanation in Islamic psychology. Just generally, we're not very used to jump directly from theology to these topics. And that is why sometimes, for example, in the mosques, we see that the imam can't really talk to us at this level of things like spiritual abuse, trauma, narcissism, and so on. It's because they're trained in a different discipline. But we do not have to believe that Islam does not have any discipline that talk about these things. Indeed, it is ilm al-nafs. So getting fluent with it, perhaps, I think is very important because nowadays people live in the psychological dimension. Nowadays people cannot imagine what it is to not live psychologically, like their nafs is the center of the universe. I'm not saying this as a criticism. It is our culture. It's a matter of fact. And this makes the study of the ilm al-nafs even more urgent for the ummah, really, in my opinion. So thanks for this question. I didn't think about talking about it.
Wow. Yeah, amazing. Just want to mention again, obviously this is, today we're talking about introducing Blogging Theology Academy's groundbreaking new diploma in Islamic psychology. And we're joined by Dr Francesca Bocca, who's a renowned neuroscientist and theologian. And she's talking to her about this exciting new program and answering your questions. If you want to see more about the syllabus, please go to bloggingtheologyacademy.com, the website where you can see an application form, which is there in front of you, for BT Academy's Diploma in Islamic Psychology 2025, where you can apply directly there. If you're not able to pay the fees in full, we will discuss, take every individual case on merit, and we have a limited number of scholarships, as I've already mentioned. So yeah, please do have a look at the website for more detailed information and a very full breakdown of the syllabus. You can see every single week what the topic is, what the required readings are, what the top, and so on. It's all there in great detail on the website. So thank you for that question. Gosh, there are lots of questions now. I like this one, if you don't mind addressing it. Assalamu alaikum.
Oh,
God bless your efforts. How does the concept and states and stations in Sufi thought sync with Islamic psychology? I kind of thought they were overlapping quite a bit. I don't know. I'm not an expert, obviously, but how would you define them differently, and what's the relationship between them?
yeah, this is a great question. I love it. We are going to talk about it in the beginning of the second semester, because this is an advanced topic. In short, when you start the travel of your nafs, the suluk, there's no difference between suluk, tazkiyatul nafs, tasawwuf, all these things in origin. They mean the same thing. Just this is difference of schools and of points of view. But we talk about Islamic theology, Islamic psychology, not theology. So we are going to overlap things that talk about the same thing. And so at the beginning of your path, you do a sort of tazkiyah. So you take away all the sicknesses of your heart. And this is mardat al-qulub. This is also a discipline that is in tasawwuf, that is in tazkiyat al-nas, that is in suluk. So this is the first step. You do a complete repentance. And repentance is, as you know, the first step of the spiritual state in tasawwuf. So Islamic psychology helps you arriving at point one. Then it is usually the work of a sheikh or a spiritual guide or anything of the school of theology that you prefer to follow, whatever, the teacher that helps you to go forward in that. The reason is that, especially nowadays, people cannot know everything. So if you find a person who is helpful in Islamic psychology, which is getting unstuck from the lower levels of your nafs to a base level, you cannot expect these people to also be able to guide you further than that. Mm-hmm. So usually, and in some models of Islamic psychology, like the traditionally Islamically integrated psychology, TIIP, which we will study, they actually divide the job completely between Muslim psychologists and the Sufi sheikh. Some other schools do not think that Sufism is necessary for Islamic psychology, and so they only talk about the individual ability of the psychotherapist. And we are going to survey all these points of view. And the point exactly that you're asking, the state and the stations, these also exist. So we're talking about ahwal, so which is a very important aspect, but in Islamic psychology, we care more about your station, so your level, your base level. If at one point you have a spiritual experience which is different, we do not care about this as much as in a spiritual discipline. We care about healing, we care about coherence, we care about progress and going forward, not in the fixated way of the West, right? To always go forward in that sense. I hope I could explain that a little bit, but it's a great question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that very much. So saying to people, do have a look at the website at bloggingtheologyacademy.com and click on the link that talks about short courses, and you will see a great deal of detail about this diploma in Islamic psychology, which is there in all its details. Every single week is itemized, the curriculum, the readings, the topics. So do have a look at that. So the start date of the course is June the 22nd this year. That's when the course actually begins. There will be a further induction event for students who have been accepted onto the course about 2 weeks before June the 22nd. So there'll be an induction session. And then the course starts on the 22nd itself. Duration is 26 weeks. So it's not so short, really. And it's a blend of online live lectures and tailored one-on-one tuition. Could you just tell us a bit more about the one-on-one tuition side of the course? So it's fairly unique, isn't it, I think, and why we offer it and what the purpose of it is, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, this is something that I really love to offer. There has been, in my experience, few universities that allow you to do this in your office hours, and sometimes it is also looked down upon a little bit, meaning that the important thing of teaching is just, going through the program and then whatever. But I do not think that. I think, and I'm really grateful for BTA to developing a format that already helps towards achieving this goal. And the goal is that by the end of the course, I should have helped you to come up with ways to employ this discipline in your life. That is fundamental to me. That's why I'm here. It was just about telling things. I would just put a YouTube video and explain everything. But so we will have office hours throughout the year, and you will be able to book a consultation with me and talk about the applications, the case studies you want to present. And also there will be other ways in which I'm going to be available, WhatsApp and email, and to really arrive at the end of the course that you have a plan, an application, and you are able to handle this discipline in daily life. Not only just, I did a course on something and then I forgot it. That's my nightmare for my students. So inshallah, we will strive together to achieve this purpose.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. I think we'll go on for another 5 minutes, and then we'll draw to a close.
Well, I have a question I'd like to answer. That is, what I've been told is that eating less, sleeping less, and drinking less is essential to purify the nafs. It is also going to be included into Islamic therapy. This is I'm really interested in answering this question, and the reason is that it is the overlap between many things which we think as separate generally: mental health, spiritual health, and asceticism. So sometimes we do think that the people that need to pray at the night is just like the super spiritual guys, or non-obligatory fast are just going for for ibadat, just for that. But we actually have many examples of curative properties of these practices, and we will talk about it. Because especially eating and has an effect on the lower states of the nafs. In fact, for example, there is Imam Ghazali that in the Ihya Ulumuddin puts a book which is about the beginning of the path that one should do to improve themselves, which is breaking the two desires. And the two desires are the sexual desire and the eating desire that are putting together. And not that in Islam we have a complete negative view of them, but we have to have control. And how is this control gained? With different tools for different people. So for some people, telling them eat less is going to harm them. For some people, telling them sleep less is going to harm them. So this is like medicine. It's medicine for the nafs. So everything has to be done not casually, not with spiritual bypassing and telling people just pray it out. That's not what Islamic psychology is. But eating, sleeping, drinking, all these things interact with our mental health, because the mind is not separate completely from the body, which is not separate completely from the fitra, from the spirit, and all of it. So this is very important.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, also the application in daily life, I like as a question, if it's possible.
So which one was that?
Yeah, so the last two questions are interesting, I think.
No, yeah, that one, or was it the other one?
Yes, this one and the following, yes.
Okay.
So the idea to do research in Islamic or spiritual psychology gets frowned upon by many professors, even in an Islamic university where I'm in India. I understand that. Wow. And I think that the problem here is that Muslims have forgotten that ilm al-nafs is an Islamic thing, and non-Muslims are afraid of religion in general being applied to mental health, even though when it is done indirectly, like with ACT or with these approaches, or with mindfulness is also deeply religious and spiritual practice. It comes from the Buddhist sati step of meditation. So it is not value-free, it's not science, this is spirituality in action. Yet everybody does studies on how mindfulness is helpful for this, for that, for blood pressure, for I don't know what. So I understand that there is a lot of prejudice about this, but I think it is primary of it's really urgent that we as Muslims would start occupying the academic platforms as well, and telling what we have to say and speaking what we have to say, because first of all, it's going to benefit everyone. I do believe that Islamic psychology has many solutions to many problems that we have nowadays. And second, as other communities do, we also have our rights to apply spirituality to psychology, even if it was just for Muslims. Still, why shouldn't we? Why should others do it and not us? So, yeah, this is, I think, very, very important.
Okay, thank you. And the last one, I think, what's an example of how you use Islamic psychology in daily life?
So it depends on what's your situation. So, for example, for people that tend to have waswasa or intrusive thoughts, there will be some strategies they can apply in daily life to get this under control. So, for example, to accept these thoughts and realize that thoughts do not bring a responsibility. Intrusive thoughts like khawatir do not bring a responsibility in Islam. But for a person that doesn't have this problem, for example, an application of Islamic psychology in daily life would do every day to do a little bit of muhasiba. Muhasiba comes from hisab, is like accounting, like weighting, balances. And so it is every day to take a moment and to evaluate the day. You evaluate your actions, you can evaluate your words, you can evaluate your intentions, and it depends. It depends, because in Islamic psychology, we're not just in the field of fiqh where we're saying what is the best in general. We're saying what is the best idea in particular for you, for your personality, for your temperament, and for all of this. So definitely there are applications of Islamic psychology, and one can I really advise everyone to do it is this muhasaba, because being present in the day, being present in what you're doing, is a key for mental and spiritual health.
Fascinating. Do you want to leave it there, Dr. Francesca, or shall we wrap up, or do you want to answer any more?
Let me have a look. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I have 3, if you don't mind. Are you in a hurry? Okay, sorry. So there is one of blacksmith, how to transition from neuroscience to Islamic science. I just like to answer briefly because I love to help people to get to study what they want to. For me, it was just life. In that time of my life, I switched places where I lived for a while, from Germany to Syria. And in Syria, at the time before the war, it was very easy to get in touch with Islamic sciences and to learn languages and these things. And then when I came back, I had to come back to Italy, and in Italy we have a very weak field of Islamic studies, so it was very easy to get into academia and to start teaching from there. So this means that it depends on the country you're at. It can be a very competitive environment, or it can be a place where you just need to put together a few publications to switch the field. Usually, if you have a PhD, it's very easy to switch field if you're able to do publications or to really bring a contribution to this field. So I would really suggest that as the only thing that comes up. And then the question from any recommended books or speakers to look into if one wants to learn ilm al-nafs through an Islamic lens. So a beginner-friendly book that I would suggest is The Dilemma of Muslim Psychotherapists, or Psychologists, by Dr. Malik Badri. This is a good introductory book. There aren't other introductory books. The problem with this book is that it's a bit dated. It's from the end of the 70s or so. So this is one. And another book, if you're a bit more into the specialist side, as A Model of Islamic Psychotherapy by Dr. Abdullah Rothman. And this is a more technical book, but it is the more up-to-date and contains what mainly people are doing in Islamic psychology. And also by Dr. Kashavarzi, introducing traditionally Islamically integrated psychotherapy. This is what I can suggest to beginners to start having a look. And then the field in English is not so big. So you will be able to then get an access to the first degree of citation to anything else, inshallah.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. So is it possible to apply Suluki concept to someone with a drug-induced psychosis? That's a very good question. And the answer is no. I'm sorry. And the reason is that in Islamic psychology, you can use concepts that are higher unless there is a blockage. And if you have a drug, if you have an intoxication, if you have a jismi, like bodily problem, you cannot apply more refined techniques. And this is the reason why, for example, people that have went through spiritual abuse or spiritual trauma, if you tell them just pray it away, just pray more, it doesn't work. And that's why for some people, the ibadat of Islam become inaccessible because of their bodily or mental states. And I know this is very hard to understand if we didn't have this experience, but that's just also what in Islamic medicine, people have always recognized. Some people can't, and we should accept that they can't in that moment and apply techniques that just make them feel okay. They just decrease the harm. And this is a very merciful approach to have. We do not expect people to do what is impossible to them. We help people where they are. One of my teachers, Dr. Rothman, said that Islamic psychology is be with what it is and be with Allah. And this really sums it up, what this discipline is. Being present, being realistic, and remembering the Creator. So I hope, inshallah, the course can achieve the goal to let you figure that out in your circumstance, in your situation, and to really get this discipline the merit it deserves, because it's an incredibly useful discipline. And the Prophet ﷺ really encouraged us to seek useful knowledge. And I can't think of many types of knowledge that are more useful applied to the community than this, really, to be honest.
Fantastic. Well, perhaps we'll draw it to a close there. Thank you very much indeed for Dr. Francesca talking about Blogging Theology Academy's groundbreaking new diploma in Islamic psychology. Do visit the website, as I've said a number of times, bloggingtheologyacademy.com, where you will see the application form, you'll see the syllabus, detailed week-by-week breakdown of the course, what it involves. You'll see questions, FAQs about the fees, when the course starts, and the way it's taught, the different ways. It's all live, of course. We don't throw recordings at people. It's all live interaction. And also you can submit further questions. If you have any more questions for Dr. Francesca about the course, practical questions or other questions, do submit them through the website, bloggingtheologyacademy.com. And I think that's probably enough for now, nearly an hour. I hope that's been of help to everyone. I've certainly learned a lot. It's a very exciting course, top-notch, top-level course. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to become much more familiar with this extraordinary world of Islamic psychology. Thank you very much, Dr. Francesca Bocca. And we will see you again soon for the induction, which is for those students who have enrolled on the course. So it's not for everyone, it's just for those who have enrolled. And inshallah, many of you today will be able to join that too, inshallah. So any final words, Dr. Francesca?
No, I would really like to thank you and the BTA Academy really for hosting me and believing that this subject is as important as I think it is. So thanks a lot, and thanks for the public attending and to the students and to everyone making this possible, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Salam alaikum. See you all soon. Take care.
Salam alaikum. Bye.